Masechet Baba Batra, Daf Kof Mem Aleph, Ha'omed im yada ishti zachar. The Mishnah brought various examples of if someone says that if my wife gives birth to a boy, then I will gift that boy 100 dinar. And if he says, if my wife has a girl, I will gift that girl 200 dinar. Those were the examples that were given in the Mishnah. And now the Gemara is going to wonder why in the example the boy gets 100 and the girl would get 200. Lememra debat adifa le mi ben. Is this to teach us that having a daughter is better than having a son? That people generally, the Mishnah is using examples that are typical. So is this typical that someone is happier to have a daughter rather than have a son, and that's why he's so happy he's going to give her 200? V'ha amar Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai kol sheno maniach ben liyorsho HaKadosh Baruch Hu maleh alav ibra. But we see a tradition that says the opposite. Rabbi Yochanan says, in the name of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, anyone who does not leave a son to inherit him, it means that Hashem is full of anger against him. Shene'emar v'abartem et nachalato lebito ve'en habara ela ivra shene'emar yom ivra hayom hahu. And he proves it from pasuk that says, if there's no son and the inheritance passes over to the daughter. So literally that just means va'abartem. You pass over the inheritance from what would be to a son, but there's no son, so it goes to the daughter. But the Mishnah is making a play on words. Ha'avara is the same letters as ivra, and ivra means wrath, anger. And so as we see in this pasuk, that day is a day of anger. So this is a sign that someone is being punished if he has no son and only daughters. So then, why does it say in the Mishnah that a daughter gets 200, which makes it sound like having a daughter is good, is better than having a son? And the answer is, it depends what the context is. La'inyan Yerusha ben adif le, le'inyan harvacha bito adifa le. When it comes to inheritance, a son is better. If someone has a son who can inherit him, that means he inherits the farm, the property, it bears his name. It will always be known as this is the field of so-and-so. And this is also his retirement plan. When the person gets old, the sons are there and provide for him in the field. Whereas if he has no son and only a daughter, then the daughter inherits and then it goes to the husband. And it will go under the husband's name eventually when she dies, if she dies before the husband does. And so then it's lost from the family. And then he doesn't have that benefit of having an inheritance. So therefore, this is certainly a negative if someone has only a daughter and no son in terms of inheritance. However, when it comes to harvacha, to providing for someone's comfort, for someone's need, a daughter requires more because a father is going to have to worry about his daughter and take care of her to make sure she gets married, and is going to have to provide for her a bride price in addition to all other expenses that he will have to provide for her in the meantime. Whereas sons don't require that. They're going to go and work on the farm and all that, and they're not going to need all that expense to make sure that they are taken care of and married off. And so therefore, the father, although regarding the inheritance, is happier if he has a boy. But when it comes to giving gifts when they give birth, he's going to have to give a bigger gift to the daughter. He says, I had a daughter. Okay, if you have a daughter, I'm going to give her 200. He's going to leave that 200 aside to make sure that he has money set aside for her needs. Ushmuel Amar, Hacha b'mavkeret askinan. Ucht Rav Chisda, Amar Rav Chisda, bat techila siman yafe lebanim. Ikadamre dim rabbeya la'achaha. Vikadamre de la shalta be'ayna bisha. Shmuel said, no, it's a different reason why a daughter is preferable. In fact, it is preferable. And we're talking about someone whose wife is giving birth with the first first child. And this would follow the opinion of Rav Chisda, who said that if someone has a daughter first, that's a good sign that they'll have sons afterwards. And what's good about it? Two interpretations. One is that the daughter who's born first will help take care of the other children. Daughters often are more helpful around the house. And so if someone has a daughter first, then this is a good sign, and that way they'll have other sons after. So the guy will have sons to inherit him. That's also good. But to have a daughter first who will help out to raise the other kids is itself a blessing. And others say so that the evil eye will not have dominion over the father. When someone has a boy first, everybody looks with jealousy upon that. Oh, look, he had a boy first. Who is he that he has a boy first? By what merit? I don't think he's so meritorious, and so on. They look for negative things to say about him. But when someone has a girl first, then people do not give him the evil eye, are not jealous of him, and then they forget about him. And then if he has a boy after, then they're not. They say, oh well, he had a girl. Okay, so good for him that he had a boy. And so that's the second reason why it's good to have a girl first. We're not talking about having only a girl and not any boys, but a girl first is a good thing. And that's why he's happy. He wants to say, if I have a girl first, then I'm going to give 200. Amar Rav Chisda Udadi Benatan Adifan li mi beneh. Rav Chisda said, for me personally, I prefer daughters to sons. He loved, I guess he had daughters. He loved his daughters, and he preferred having daughters. And so you see that comes as different opinions about. Some people prefer to have sons, and some of the rabbis preferred themselves to have daughters. And another way of answering this question is that this Mishnah is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says something nice about having daughters. Now, hey, Rabbi Yehuda, which statement of Rabbi Yehuda are you talking about? He said many different statements regarding daughters. Rabbi Yehuda de bakol de Tanya Vadonai berachet Abraham bakol. Rabbi Meir omer shelo haya lo bat. Rabbi Yehuda omer shehayta lo bat. Ubakol Shema. So, which opinion of Rabbi Yehuda are you talking about? Maybe it's the one that's recorded in the following Baraita, where the pasuk says, this is this week's parasha, that Hashem blessed Abraham with everything, Bakol. So what does that mean, Bakol? What is that coming to include? That he had riches, we know that he had success in various ways. So what is Bakol coming to include? Rabbi Meir says he was blessed that he had no daughter. That was his blessing. He had only sons and no daughter. Oh, how would that be a blessing? I guess according to Rabbi Meir, all the expense and the worry that he's going to have to marry her off and all that. So he didn't have to have all that anxiety. So that was the blessing. So Rabbi Meir obviously is not so favorable for having daughters. But Rabbi Yehuda said the opposite. You know what Bakol means? He was so blessed that he had a daughter. And not only that, the daughter's name was Bakol. What a beautiful name, right? If you have a daughter, you have everything. And so you see that this is a blessing to have a daughter according to Rabbi Yehuda. So maybe he's the author of this Mishnah, and that's why he says, if I have a son, I'll give him 100. If I have a daughter, wow, that'd be fantastic. I'm going to give 200. So is this the statement of Rabbi Yehuda that we're thinking of? No. No, you cannot learn from here that having a daughter is better. That's not what he said. It could be that Rabbi Yehuda is teaching us that Abraham had a son. He did have sons, and he also had a daughter. That's the blessing, that he didn't only have sons, but he had sons, and you know what? Don't think he didn't have a daughter. He had a daughter also. So certainly, yeah, that's a blessing to have sons and daughters. Most people would like to have both sons and daughters. So that's all we can learn from this statement of Rabbi Yehuda. We cannot learn from here that it's better to have a daughter over a son, even if you have no sons, better to have a daughter. That is not something that we can learn from here, because Abraham did have sons. אלא הרבי יהודה דתניא, מצווה לזון את הבנות וקל וחומר לבנים תעסקי בתורה. דברי רבי מאיר, רבי יהודה אומר, מצווה לזון את הבנים וקל וחומר לבנות דלה לתזלן. Rather, it must be the statement of this statement of Rabbi Yehuda that we are thinking about, as a Baraita teaches, is a mitzvah for a father father to provide sustenance for his daughters, and all the more so for his sons, because the sons are learning Torah. So if he has to provide for the daughters, then all the more so for the sons, because the sons are busy learning Torah. It would be a lot more difficult for them to have to go and beg or go find a job. According to the Bimeir. So you see, according to the Bimeir, providing for sons is more important than providing for daughters. So you see, he prefers sons over daughters. However, the Yehuda says the opposite. The Yehuda says it's a mitzvah to provide for sons. And that's what we know already. And we learn from that, kal vachomer, that a father has to provide for his daughters so that they won't be disgraced. It's much more disgraceful for a girl to have to go and beg than for a boy. And so you see that the Yehuda gives preference to daughters over sons. And so this is the statement of the Yehuda that we were thinking of when we said that our Mishnah could be the opinion of the Yehuda, who prefers daughters. And so that's why a father typically would say, I'll give 100 for a boy, I'll give 200 for a girl. אלא הדתניא, ילדה זכר ונקבה, הזכר נוטל 6 דינרים, והנקבה נוטל 2 דינרים במאי. Okay, now that we discussed the Mishnah and the various examples that the Mishnah gave, we now quote a Baraita. It has some kind of different scenario, but we don't know what the statement of the father was that could lead to such an outcome. And the Baraita says that if someone his wife gave birth to a boy and a girl, she had twins, then the boy takes 6 dinarim, that's 6 golden coins, which is equivalent of 150 silver coins. And the girl takes 2 gold coins, which is the equivalent of 50 silver coins. So what would be the situation where that could be? Typically, the father says, if this is born, then 100. If that's born, then 200. So how would it end up with a split of 150 for the boy and 50 for the girl? That would be kind of strange. Amar Rav Ashi, Amrita d'shma'ata kamed Rav Kana, bimsaresta, Amar zachar techila 200, nekeba charav ve'lo kelum, nekeba techila maneh, zachar achareha maneh, ve'yalda zacharun keva, ve'layadinan hem minayu nefak beresha, zachar shakil maneh mima nafshach, idach maneh hava mamon mutar b'safek ve'cholkin. And so Rav Ashi says, I said the statement before Rav Kahana, and Rav Kahana explained, is talking about a case where the father said a statement in an inverted way. He said something like as follows: if I have a boy first, I will give that boy 200, and the girl that comes after, I'm not giving anything. But if I have a girl first, I'm going to give the girl 100, and a boy that comes after it, I will also give 100. That's the statement he makes. And then his wife has both a boy and a girl, but they got mixed up, and they don't know which one was born first. We know which one's a boy, which one's a girl, but we don't know which one was born first, and therefore we don't know which of these clauses to apply. Now, the son is going to get 100 no matter what, because if he was born first, he actually deserves 200, and if he was born second, still he will get 100. So we should, for sure, you give him 100. Now we have the other 100 that we don't know what to do with. It's in safek. So whenever we have money that's of uncertain ownership, so one of the laws is you split it down the middle, and that's why we give the boy 50 and we give the girl 50. That's how we end up with 150 for the boy and 50 for the girl. Good. So we solved that one, and now another puzzle. V'hadetanya, yalda zacharun keva en lo ela maneh, hechi mashkachat la. We have a baraita that there's a case that if his wife gave birth to a boy and a girl, then the boy receives only 100. Well, how would you have such a case? What did he say? Did he say for the boy, for the girl? And so, Amar Ravina, be mevasereni. He says, when someone informs me. I will explain exactly what the case is. Detanya. Ha mevasereni b'meh niftar, rachma shel ishti, im zachar yitol maneh, yalda zachar notel maneh, im nekeva maneh, yaleda nekeva notel maneh, yalda zacharun keva en lo ela maneh. Braita explains, let's say the father is far away on a trip. while his wife is pregnant. And he wants to get the news. So he's going to offer a prize to anyone who brings him the news of what his wife had. So he says, anyone who comes and informs me that what did my wife give birth to, if it's a boy, then I will give that messenger 100 dinar. So if in fact she has a boy and someone comes and tells him, then he has to give 100 to the informer. And then if the father says, if my wife has a girl, then whoever tells me about that will get 100. And sure enough, if she has a girl and someone comes and tells him, then that messenger gets a 100. If she ends up having twins, a boy and a girl, the messenger comes and says, you had a boy and a girl. Does the messenger get 200? No, he only gets 100. This is different from the previous case where the money is going to the boy or to the girl. Here, the point is that he just wants to be informed about what she had. So he says, I'm going to give 100 to someone who tells me if it's a boy. I'm going to give 100 to someone who tells me if it's a girl. But if it's both, he just wants to know the news. So he's still only going to give 100. Hold on, maybe he doesn't have to give anything at all, because in his condition he said, if someone tells me it's a boy, I'll give 100. If someone tells me a girl, I'll give 100. But he didn't say if someone says it's a boy and a girl, so maybe that's not one of the conditions and he doesn't have to pay anything. And the answer is no, it's a case where he also said in the conditions, and if she has twins, a boy and a girl, then also the messenger will get 100, but the messenger gets 100 no matter what. So that explains the original baraita there, where someone gives birth to a boy and a girl, then he gets only 100. We'd be talking about a case like this. Now, why would he go through every case and say, if it's a boy, if it's a girl, if it's a boy and a girl? Why not just say, whoever tells me my wife gave birth, I'll get 100, and it doesn't matter, right? And it doesn't matter what it is. I just want to know that, tell me what she gave birth to, and I'll give that person 100. Why are you specifying a boy or girl or boy and girl? So what is it coming to exclude that he wouldn't pay for? And the answer is if it's a stillborn or a non-viable newborn. If she gives birth but it dies immediately or soon after, then that messenger is a messenger of bad news and is not going to get any money at all. The Gemara is now going to present a new case and will relate it back to our Mishnah. Hahuda amar la ledebitu, nechasai lahai de mi aberat. Amar Rav Huna, have mezakeh le'obar, v'mezakeh le'obar lo kana. If someone says to his wife, I am going to give all my property to the one that you are pregnant with, meaning this child that you are bearing, I want to gift all of my property to this baby. Rav Huna rules that if someone says that, then he is trying to transfer ownership to a fetus. But it doesn't work. If you transfer ownership to a fetus, he does not acquire it. A fetus is not yet a full human, a legal entity that can acquire something, not even a gift. And therefore, if he says that, nothing happens. It's an ineffective statement. Now, that's Rav Huna's opinion. Iti be Rav Nachman l'Rav Huna. Ha'omer im yaleda ishti zachar yitol maneh, yaleda zachar notel maneh. Rav Nachman challenges Rav Huna from our Mishnah, where the Mishnah teaches that if a father says, if my wife gives birth to a boy, then I will give 100 dinar to that boy. And if sure enough she has a boy, then the boy can collect 100. But you see here, he said this while his wife was pregnant, and yet it still works, even though the child is a fetus. Nevertheless, that statement says, I'm giving this fetus. If it's a boy, then I give it 200. I give it 100. Then the transfer happens. So that means that you can transfer money to a fetus. Good question. Rav Huna has an answer. Amar le mishnatenu eni yodeya mishana'a. Rav Huna says, I don't know who wrote our Mishnah. I don't know who the author is. It's nobody I know. Because Rav Huna is saying, from all the sources that I know, all the Tanaitic sources, I haven't found anyone who thinks that you can transfer money to a fetus. And therefore, this Mishnah is simply anomalous, and I don't know who wrote it. Wow, that's a big challenge regarding our Mishnah. So now we're going to make various tries to figure out who might be the author of our Mishnah that would agree that you can transfer such an item or to transfer something to a fetus. So maybe it's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says a person can transfer something that does not yet exist in the world. For example, if I say, hey, I'm going to sell to you the apple harvest of next year. According to the Bimeir, that works, even though there is no apples right now, but they will grow, the trees are there, and so you can transfer that from now. So maybe this our Mishnah is the opinion of the Bimeir, but that doesn't work. And we're Dishmat le Bimeir, le davar sheyeshno ba'olam, le davar she'eno ba'olam, mishmat le. No, we only learned about the Bimeir. They says you can transfer something that the item doesn't exist to something that does exist. In other words, I can transfer to you next year's apples because even though the apples don't exist, I exist and you exist. So the receiver does exist right now. That's where the Bimeir was lenient and said you can do that. But he did not say that you can transfer an item to someone who does not yet exist. You can't transfer even an apple that I have in my hand. I cannot transfer it to a fetus who has not yet come into the world, was not yet born. Did we ever hear the Bimeir says that? We have not. And therefore, we have to try again. So, another answer. Maybe Rav Huna could say the following. Rabbi Yosehi da'amar, ubar kaneh ditnan, ubar posel ve'eno ma'achil, dibre Rabbi Yoseh. Because it could be Rabbi Yoseh. Rabbi Yoseh says that a fetus can acquire something. Where do we ever see that Rabbi Yoseh says that? It's a Mishnah Masechet Yevamot, where the Mishnah teaches that a fetus disqualifies his father's Eved Kanaani from eating terumah, and also does not enable the mother to partake from terumah according to the Biyoseh. Let's explain the case. Let's say you have someone who is a Kohen, and he has a wife who is pregnant, and he also owns Canaanite slaves. Since he is a Kohen, the law is that all of his family and everything he owns can also eat terumah. That includes his wife, even if she is from a Bat Yisrael, she can eat terumah while he's alive and while they're married, and also his slaves, even his animals can eat terumah. However, if he dies and the wife, if they have a child together, then the mother can continue eating terumah through the son. However, in this case, it's more complicated because she only is pregnant. And so this Mishnah teaches that while she is pregnant, that fetus will disqualify the slaves from eating terumah, and the mother also cannot eat terumah. In other words, while she's pregnant, the fetus is not sufficient of a person to be able to allow everybody else to eat terumah. However, the implication is that once this fetus is born, then they will all be able to eat terumah, because then it's a person, and this person is a son who inherits from the father, and therefore, through this son who is a Kohen, the mother can eat terumah, and the Canaanite slaves who are now owned by this baby also can eat terumah since he is a Kohen. What do we learn from here? That even though he is a fetus now, nevertheless, once he's born, he will inherit everything, and then everybody can eat terumah. So we see that according to the Bi Yoseh, a fetus can acquire something, and when he's born, he will acquire the entire inheritance. So can't our Mishnah be the Bi Yoseh? And the answer is no. Inheritance is different from a gift. Inheritance comes by itself automatically. The father doesn't even have to say anything. When a father dies, then immediately that will go to the child. And if the child is a fetus now, immediately when the fetus is born, you don't have to do anything. There's a child here, and then the inheritance will go to that child. And so therefore, since it happens by itself, then when the father dies, it automatically goes to the fetus. So a fetus can acquire an inheritance where it it happens automatically. That's different from a gift where a gift doesn't happen automatically. Someone has to give a gift and someone has to receive a gift. All right, remember we saw previously someone gives a gift, another one says, no, I don't want it, is protesting. You can't give a gift unless there's someone to receive it. And therefore, even though it's true, the Yosef says a fetus can inherit, but the Yosef does not say that a fetus can receive a gift. And our Mishnah is talking about where the father said, if my wife gives birth, then the child will get 100 dinar. So that's giving a gift, not an inheritance. So we'll try another. So maybe the author of our Mishnah, according to Rav Huna, he could say that it is Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka who says there's no difference between inheritance and a gift. Where do we see that he says that? In a prior Mishnah. Ditnan. Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka omer, im amar al misha ra'ui leyorsho, devarav kayamin. We saw Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, he was quoted a lot. He said that if a father says, I want to give all my inheritance, I don't want it to be split equally between my sons, I want to give it all to one son, or I want to give it all to a daughter, or someone else, he can do that as long as the person that he chooses is in line to inherit him somewhere, even if he's not directly in line, as long as he or she is somewhere in the line of inheritance, he can do that. So what do we see from here? Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, this is talking about a gift, because if it's regular inheritance, it would go to whatever, all the sons, if there are sons. But he's giving it instead as a gift to a particular person. And we're assuming now that he said, when he says, Mi shada'ui liyosho, anyone who can inherit him, that would mean even a fetus. So we see that according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, whether it's an inheritance or a gift, since he's talking about a gift, it works even if it's a fetus, and so too our Mishnah can be talking about can be the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka that says you can give a gift to a fetus. No, we say emor de shamat le Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka le davar sheyeshno ba'olam le davar she'eno ba'olam mi amar. Hold on, whoever said that Rabbi Yochanan thinks that you can give something to a fetus? We only know Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka says you can give such a gift to someone who exists in the world. His chidush is sufficient, that he's saying if a father wants to give everything to a daughter, even though there are sons, he can do that. But that's if the daughter is alive. But if someone does not yet exist, was not yet born, did Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka ever say that? We haven't heard him say that. So that's not an answer either. But let's try again. Rav Huna could say, if we combine the two opinions of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka and Rabbi Yosef, see, we know that Rabbi Yosef said that a fetus can inherit. Good, so that's good. And if we combine that with Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, who says that you can give a gift or an inheritance to anyone down the line, and if we assume Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka would also agree with Rabbi Yosef that a fetus can inherit, then you put them all together, then you'd say, oh, a fetus can give, you can give a gift to a fetus. Well, yeah, if you put them all together, I guess it would work. But the problem is, miyamar de sabarla, whoever said that Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka agrees with Rabbi Yosef. You just mixing and matching two completely different opinions, but we don't know if he ever thought that, and therefore that's not good enough of an answer. So the Gemara suggests yet another possibility of what Rav Huna could have said to Rav Nachman. Remember, Rav Huna said that a fetus cannot get anything, cannot receive a gift. So Rav Nachman asked him, what about in the Mishnah when the father says, if you give birth to his wife, if you give birth to a boy or a girl, I will give you this much money. So then the fetus gets that money. So it sounds like the fetus is getting some money and the fetus can acquire something. So now Rav Huna could answer that we're talking about an informer, a messenger, like we said earlier about a different baraita. Maybe what the father actually said was, if you give birth to a boy, then the person who tells me will get 100. If you give birth to a girl, the person who tells me will get 200. The person who tells him, the messenger, is very much alive. And that would solve the whole problem. A fetus cannot acquire something. A messenger who is alive can acquire something. So wouldn't that be an easy way to answer the question from the Mishnah? Ihachi dekatani sefa, v'im en sham yoresh elahu yoresh hakol. I be mebasereni yoresh mai abidete. If so, how will you explain the end of the Mishnah that says, if a tumtum is the only one who is around, only child, then the tumtum will inherit. If there are boys, then the boys inherit. If there are girls, the girls will inherit. But if there's only a tumtum, then the tumtum gets everything. If you're talking, and all the previous cases were about a messenger, or the messenger received a certain gift, then what does an inheritor have to do with this? The whole thing was talking about cases of a messenger receiving some money. So now all of a sudden you're talking about someone inheriting, but that we weren't talking about inheriting before. So you wouldn't be able to explain it. If you say before we were talking about the child receiving money, then you could say, oh, and the tumtum receives money if he's the only heir. That makes sense. So you cannot say that the whole Mishnah is talking about a messenger. Last possibility. Maybe we're talking about a case where the wife already gave birth, and he's saying, if you have given birth to a boy, then the boy gets 100, but the boy's very much alive. If it's a girl, 200, and the girl is alive. So maybe she already gave birth. But that doesn't work with the continuation of the Mishnah, where if the father said, if whatever my wife will give birth to, then that child will get that money, no matter what it is, whether it's a boy or a girl or a tumtum. So you see, it clearly uses the word teled, kol she teled, kol she yaldami ba'ile. If the wife already gave birth, it should have used past tense, whatever she gave birth to. But it doesn't say it in the Mishnah, it says whatever she will give birth to. So that doesn't work either. Oh, one more possible answer. Oh, so maybe the Mishnah is talking about a case where the husband, while his wife was pregnant, she didn't give birth yet, but he said, when the child gives birth, I will give that child 100, right? If you will give birth to a boy, then I will give 100 when he's born. I'm not transferring it now as a fetus, because I can't do that. But when it's born and it's a full person, then I will transfer the $100. Maybe that's what the Mishnah is talking about. And then Rav Huna could solve his problem. You can't transfer money to a fetus, but you can say now, when, later on, in 9 months, when this is born, then I will give it 100 dinar. And the answer is that we couldn't do that either, because Rav Huna l'tamed, Amar Rav Huna, af lichteled lo kana. Rav Huna is consistent with his opinion that he says elsewhere, because elsewhere he says, if someone says, I'm going to give something to a child when it's born, it doesn't, the fetus does not acquire it, not now, and not even when it's born. On the next stop, we'll see where Rav Huna says that. We'll see the full context. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.